Record button. Okay, again, welcome. We're going to talk today about the fellowship program, and we're going to begin, if my PowerPoint will move, we're going to begin by talking about the quality of fellow you can expect to get in your organization. And the best way to do that is to talk about the fellows that are currently in the field in Texas working. One of the best among those, they're all fabulous, but a great one is Olivia. She works for Catholic Charities in Houston at the Cabrini Center. Olivia's work with immigration populations quickly exposed her to the human trafficking crisis in Houston as a firm believer that freedom is a precursor to the exercise of any other right. She became committed to zealously representing victims as they seek to avail themselves of the rights and remedies for which they qualify. She had worked at Cabrini Center as a law clerk intern and supported by the experience and vision of the Cabrini Center in advancing fundamental human rights and freedoms. She developed in partnership with Cabrini Center, her host organization, this project to expand victims' access to justice so that they can move forward from the victimization that had occurred having been human trafficked. She, in her first 6 months, Olivia has made an impact representing 11 clients in T-visa proceedings, hosting 2 pro bono workshops for 30 attorneys, and helping reunify the families of 2 victims through consular processing. She is an active participant in the direct delivery of legal services to victims of human trafficking in the Houston area, and she's working with the Houston Human Trafficking Coalition to help bring all of the players in the community to bear on this issue. And so she's playing an integral role there. Olivia, in her interview, was passionate about this issue and about the people who are victimized by what would be a modern-day slave trade. So she's the kind of person that you can expect to be a fellow in your program. Mani Nuzami, who's with the Thurgood Marshall Earl Carl Institute in Houston, is addressing the issue of disproportionate minority contact through a holistic approach by providing legal representation to children who are in the criminal justice system, the mental health system, and the foster care system. He applied to law school with the sole intent of making a career out of working in the public interest arena. Through his work as a contract attorney for the Earl Carl Institute's Legal and Social Policies Juvenile Justice Project, he had the experience providing in-court representation to children and teenagers in the educational system. Through that experience, he saw the gaps in treating all of the child and juvenile through critical legal remedies so that their trajectory was away from the challenges and the problems they'd had as a member, as a child in foster care, in juvenile justice system, in school disciplinary actions. He takes representing children as one of the most important responsibilities he's ever had. He's begun to see his novel approach of these wraparound legal services of representing youth in multiple systems achieve very successful results. As he puts it, it's been an incredible experience. It's been incredible to see this experience. It's been incredible experiencing in this project take life. He's been representing about 20 clients across the different systems in school disciplinary hearings, on special education issues, and in criminal proceedings. I look forward to his annual report because I know that his impact is going to make a huge difference for the young people that he's coming in contact through this project. Gonzalo Serrano is working with the Equal Justice Center in their relatively newer office in Dallas. Gonzalo could not have been more right for this fellowship. In fact, it was sort of tailor-made for him by him in concert with his law professor, who he had come to know through the wage clinic at UT Law. So he had worked closely with Equal Justice Center through law school. As the son of Mexican immigrants, he lived for 15 years as an undocumented immigrant in the DFW area, where he witnessed the injustice that the immigrant community suffered at the hands of unscrupulous employers. He developed a strong desire to arm himself with the necessary tools to be a voice for those in his community that would otherwise be forced to live in silence. And that process, I'll never forget in our interview, him describing how at as early as late junior high school, he began to assist his family members for whom English was a second language, their friends, people in their neighborhood and community, with reviewing documents, with filling out forms, with trying to know what they needed to know to be a citizen in, or an active community member in the community of in the area of DFW in which they lived. And he tried to help them through making information accessible to them that wouldn't otherwise be. And from that grew his desire to be a lawyer. He saw the importance of being able to understand the things that we say to one another in writing that form agreements and that help you get what you need and what you're entitled to in our community, in our country. So when Gonzalo came to us, he was actually working in the legislature as an intern. It was his second callback for that work with Senator Zaffirini. He is without a doubt a future leader in legal aid, and probably a future political leader in our state, who will take his experience in working with legal aid to the Texas legislature, and Lord knows where from that, to champion what he knows to be right and just in our society. So he is an outstanding example of the kind of folks that we get as EJW TJ fellows. Excuse me. He's had much success building partnerships with community organizations serving immigrant populations in the DFW area and conducting community education on employment rights. He's become full representation of 11 clients in his first 6 months and provided advice and referral to approximately 70 individuals. So as you can see, there is actual direct representation taking place for your clients with these fellowships from a very early stage. Another that unfortunately I couldn't get his handsome picture to come off of the website and put it in this slide, but Jonathan Silva, who works with Lone Star Legal Aid, he's a veteran of the United States Navy and served as a Navy medic. Jonathan has a unique combination of military, medical, and legal backgrounds. After the military and after he served as a medic, he decided to go to law school. His experience allows him to efficiently gather the necessary military records and assemble a complete evidentiary package in language that VA claims processors can understand, and that is what he does. He seeks to improve the disability outcomes and to match them up with what is truly going on with the veterans so that they can get all of the benefits that they're entitled to based on the degree to which they're disabled. The opportunity to represent veterans was so clearly a passion of Jonathan's, and being able to serve veterans for him is a great privilege. And he's doing that in the Houston area, working in concert with the VA or the Veterans Legal Clinic that occurs with the Houston Bar Association and Houston Volunteer Lawyers. Also working with Beacon Law, which is a homelessness legal aid department through the Beacon, which is affiliated with the Episcopal Church. Jonathan is making good community contacts and is doing everything he can to improve the plight of veterans in that area. He's made great strides in establishing the relationships that I mentioned. He has built a caseload of 43 open cases in which he is the lead counsel and provided brief advice and referral to 58 veterans or veteran-related clients. Meaningful work, passionately achieved. Now I want to show you a brief video of one of our more rural fellows, Emily Schools, and this is some news footage that describes the work that she's doing in Abilene through Legal Aid of Northwest Texas. If I didn't say it before, if you have a question, please just chat me and we'll take it as soon as possible.
Thank you, Mark. An Abilene attorney is offering her legal services free of charge to homeless and underprivileged kids in the big country. KTexas crime reporter Ariana Garza joins us now with the facts on what her services include. Ariana.
Wayne, all of the free help is made possible through a grant, and Emily Schools says she's just one of about 57 recent law school grads across the nation who has been approved for it. Emily Schools has been an Equal Justice Works Fellow for 6 months. The grant lasts for 2 years, and she wants to reach everyone in need before her time is up. One of the free services she offers is legal help for people who have juvenile records and are looking to join the workforce.
Cleaning up the aftermath involves educating them on who has your record and who do you have to tell about it, who can you keep it from, clearing your record through those expunctions or non-disclosure orders, record sealing for minors. And then how do you go about clearing all these fines you have left over?
But the help is not just for juveniles. For example, if you're already 25 but have concerns about a past juvenile record, you can still reach out to her.
How important is it for these kids to get that second chance to try and be a functioning member of society when they're older?
It's extremely important because, unfortunately, criminality is so negatively stigmatized in the United States. And honestly, in Texas, because we're tough on crime. So as soon as you hear that somebody has a disorderly conduct charge, it sounds awful. And you wouldn't want that employee to work in your office. But it could have just been a petty fight when they were in 6th grade.
She also has resources for homeless, runaway, or otherwise unaccompanied kids, which she says is more common here than you think. That's where this handbook comes into play.
It addresses several legal topics they typically have questions about, such as, how can I get emancipated? What is an emancipation? What happens if I'm pregnant and my parents kick me out and I maybe want an abortion? What do I do? I'm thinking about running away. What are my options?
And for information on how to get in touch with her or call the youth hotline, you can visit our website, ktxs.com. Braith.
So, as you can see, these fellows can make a huge difference in communities. And, she's been there 6 months and she gets that kind of feature on the nightly news because it is innovative. It is responsive to community needs. And she's very articulate and does a beautiful job of describing how she intends to help the young people in that area. One of the things that I want to mention about her, the piece, is that one of the things that we look for in funding these fellows is sustainability, and the application addresses that, and we want to see some thought given to that and some possibility that could happen, but it's not always possible that people can actually stay in the work that their fellowship brought them into. It's not always possible that they can even stay as a staff attorney. That's a goal that I think every host should think through when they do seek to have a fellow. But from the video, you saw that she had created a document which will live and breathe in that organization as long as someone, keeps it kind of up to date and continues to print it for the community or put it on a website or put it on Texas Law Help. It's a document that can be available to the community that she's responsible for that definitely can go much further than the 2-year period in which she will be working on that project at Abilene. I want to just go over quickly what we're talking about in terms of an application period for the 16-18 fellows, which is upon us. The application deadline is September 18th, and that application will open July 6th. Then there's a period of time between October and the following April of 2016 where interviewing and processing and trying to decide on, trying to get fellows placed with sponsors occurs. I really hope it has in a couple of different years gone into March and April for TGEF. It's my commitment, it's Tammy's commitment, it's Betty's commitment, it's Jonathan's commitment that this year we will get these fellows selected by the end of the year, if at all possible. So we want our applicants and we want our host organizations to know before they go into the next calendar year what they can expect so that they can plan accordingly. And that's a strong commitment that we all have. And it's one of the reasons that we're trying to be very proactive in getting the information out and making sure that we have adequate applicants that come in by September 18th so that we don't have to. In fact, I think we've ruled out the possibility, unless there was some extreme circumstance, of opening an application process again for TGEF. We will dance with those who brung us, as they say in Texas. We will take who we have on September 18th, and that will be the cadre of folks that we make our assessments about. With the application opening on July 6th, as you can well imagine, as a potential host organization, it is time to begin to, if you would like to sponsor a candidate, begin that process in earnest of finding someone. It may be someone who worked in your organization last summer. It may be someone who's working in your organization this summer. It may be someone who you find because you make contact with local law schools or the local bar association or a local student organization in the law schools. And we'll talk a little bit about one method in which you might attempt to do that. But it is time to begin to find that candidate so that they can get busy and you can get busy working with them on their application. There are 4 components to the fellowship, to every fellowship. The first being a project. And, TGEF has a good system for funding staff attorneys, and we do it to the extent that we possibly can, as often as we can, in every organization, as fully as we can. But we have made a priority. Our board has made a priority. Our staff believes in the priority of funding fellows because it does several things. It encourages those who think that they have a strong public interest bent or leaning to pursue that in a way that they can, somewhat guide and direct for their passion, from where they're passionate. It encourages those outside of legal aid to participate in legal aid in a sort of a different way. It's one thing that we haven't been as effective at in Texas as I would like, but I encourage all of you to think about it in your own communities, and that is encouraging law firms to be partners with TGEF on funding fellows. We could, right now TGEF has funding has had for a while for 3 fellows a year. So that's 2 fellows that we fully fund and then 2 fellows that we fund half of. And we look to partner with other organizations to fund with law firms or someone else to fund those other 2. Greenberg Trog has been a constant partner over the last 3 or 4 years. And they've funded half of a fellow and we funded half of a fellow, so we're co-sponsors. We have not been successful at finding that 4th, but I would actually like to find 3 more. yeah. Don't ask me to do the math on this, but anyway, I would like to find 3 to 6 more so that TGEF's funds can be leveraged beyond where we are now, and we can get more fellows for our money. So many of you have relationships with law firms in your community, and this is a way for them to engage in supporting legal aid and helping to identify future leaders in legal aid and getting work done for populations that are currently underrepresented or completely unrepresented. So I encourage you to think about who those partners may be on a project. We're not looking to fund staff attorneys. We're hoping that they will stay in your organization and that they will become staff attorneys and future leaders in your organization. But we, for the 2-year period, are looking to fund projects. The candidates are a third-year law student, a recent law graduate, or can even be an experienced private sector attorney who is wanting to get back into or get into for the first time public interest law. They've decided that's where they want their skills and abilities to be utilized. So the law school from which the applicant is graduating must be a member of Equal Justice Works, and there's a list of those law schools on the website. So, and a third-year law student must be able to graduate and begin the fellowship by September 2016 for the current application period. So, third year, but they also have to be viable for graduation after that third year. A host organization is a nonprofit organization and will be the fellow's employer during the fellowship term. The role is training, supervision, benefits such as health insurance, and other support that enables, I'm so sorry, let me take a drink of water. and other support like, an office, computer, that sort of thing that enables them to carry out their project. The project should fit into the overall scheme and priorities of the host organization. We're not asking you to get away from your mission and your vision for serving clients in order to take on this project. Lastly, the sponsors are us. It can be a law firm, a corporation, a foundation like TGEF, a bar association could be a sponsor or a co-sponsor. I had a question a couple of years ago about whether it would be okay for a bar association section to fund the expenses that the program incurs, because there are some, the expenses that the program incurs in hosting the fellow. So the expense of a computer, office space, the health insurance, if you need to pay into a retirement account on behalf of the fellow. And that is absolutely fine. That's going to be different than a co-sponsor, like somebody that partners with TGEF to fund the salary, the $41,000 salary, but it's absolutely fine with us, and we encourage you to find someone to cover that portion of it. Absolutely. The project eligibility, in a minute we'll talk about what are kind of some of the hot button issues that have been identified for sponsors, what they are seeking to fund and for the 2016-2018 period. We'll go over that in a minute. So that kind of addresses the subject matter and issue areas. The projects, they're open to most any project except international and criminal defense work. And TGEF, for TGEF to sponsor, it needs to be with a TGEF grantee. That's a requirement. And it needs to be a project that complies with the limitations on whatever funds we're using. If we can use BCLS funds to fund a fellowship, we'll do it. But if, in order to get the least restrictive funds available to the fellow, because their project, would not fall squarely within BCLS priorities and limitations, then we'll do that if we see a project. But we can't do anything beyond, we don't have any private funding so that we can do anything beyond what IOLTA allows. We've talked about about candidate eligibility and host organization eligibility. Benefits to the host, or you get the salary of the $41,000 covered by the sponsors. I think, and it is an outstanding recruitment tool to be used by organizations. One of the people that I think does that best, and one of the organizations, is TRLA, David Hall. I called him sometime last spring or winter to talk to him about he had several fellowship candidates pending. And when I got him on the phone, he was in New York at a career fair, probably recruiting his next crop of fellows. I told him that I wanted to talk a little bit about his strategy on these webinars today. And so I sent him an email and said, could you share with me? And I should have known that to use the term strategy or strategic with David Hall was like, speaking Greek. He said that he didn't have a strategy for it, and it was really just the outstanding reputation of his program that made all of these outstanding graduates, young people, future public interest leaders want to work for his organization. He was in New York and he was at a career fair, so I think that he is strategic. He seeks these folks to engage in fellowships so that he will have them as staff attorneys once their projects are completed and future leaders in his organization, and it works very effectively. Almost every fellow he's ever had is now it may be every. I have not looked, but I should. I know in recent memory, every one of them remains in his program and is a staff attorney, and I would say a future leader in the organization. So I really encourage your organization to think about using this process with that end in mind. Training a new attorney, from every site visit I've been on with peer reviewers from all over the country, from any discussions I've had with the leadership in my program, it seems pretty settled that 2 years is the length of time that it takes to adequately train a staff attorney in your organization and to really begin to get value out of them, as opposed to just the investment that you're putting in them. And this is the opportunity to get that salary paid while you're doing that. Now, I'm not talking about training them as a staff attorney, but I'm talking about inculcating them in the culture of your organization and in legal aid work, seeing them thrive in work that is related to your mission and a part of your mission, even though it might not be the work that they would do once they became a staff attorney. Getting an opportunity for them to see if they mesh well with you and your program and the culture and vice versa, so that if you want to keep them on after. So it, to me, is from a hiring standpoint and a recruitment standpoint and retention standpoint, because we have programs where we would go and their attorneys would be there for 2 years, and they've, in my opinion, and in the opinion of many who know more than I do, it seems they'd lost such an opportunity to really benefit from that hire because they hadn't thought strategically about retention over time. So this is an opportunity to use the program in that way. Future leaders who participate at no cost to the host organization in outstanding EJW leadership development training in DC. They do one of those each year that they are a fellow, so 2 of those. And then the host organizations become a part of this cadre of legal aid organizations that have hosted these prestigious fellows. And, I still hear people talking about being a Reggie, or, they were a Reggie in, I think Jonathan Vickery was a Reggie at Legal Services of North Texas, and ended up staying there obviously forever, and is now with us at TJEF. And there's prestige in being a Reggie, and there's prestige in being an organization that is considered strong enough to host a Reggie. And the same is true of EJW. Rudy, I may have to have you talk about that in a minute, because I can't even understand what you're saying. Rudy chatted me a little bit about one of my comments. So the application process for EJW fellows is that fellows and fellowship candidates and host organizations need to find each other. And for the 2016-2018 period, they need to start finding each other pretty quickly. The fellowship candidate is the applicant. The host organization supports the candidate to file that application. They do all that they can to provide them with whatever information they need about the host organization. They can even write their portion, and I'll show you in a minute the portion of the host organization application. They can author that for them, participate in what seems really feasible in the communities, because the host organization is going to know that a whole lot better than the applicant. So they've drafted that proposal together, and this year it's going to be due by 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on September 18th, 2015. After those applications are in, they go to a review committee that and Sarah and Tammy could talk in much more detail about this, but it's a sort of an anonymous, from what I understand, review committee that may include lawyers in private practice. It may include executive directors and host organizations, not necessarily in those that would be that are current candidates. Former fellows, but anyway, a group that they consider to be a team that is knowledgeable in what a strong fellowship is. They go through and read all of those fellowships in teams, and then those are ranked. I think each have a 3 or 4 person team that ranks them so that they get some fair treatment. It's not just one person's opinion about your ranking. And then that information in kind of summary form, not the comments or the rankings themselves, are shared with the potential sponsors. And from that, we, TJEF or Greenberg or the Florida Bar Foundation or whoever is going to pay for these fellowships, review those applications with those rankings and decide whether, who we want to interview. There have been years when we've interviewed everybody. There have been interviews like this year when we interviewed not even half. So, and that is really a function of those ratings, how strong the applicants are, and what we know we can reasonably interview. It could be the project. We've done one of those before. It could be any number of things, but we're going to want to get the decision to a fellowship candidate as quickly as possible if there's no realistic opportunity for them to get the fellowship after we've done that initial review. And they'll let them know in October if they've been cut completely from the process. And it is a highly competitive process. And then we go on to set up interviews, and I interview for TJEF, and Greenberg and I interview for those co-sponsored fellows. If we found another law firm in your community, say Dallas or San Antonio or somewhere like that, then I would interview with that law firm if they wanted to co-sponsor with us. It helps us all fund more. 2 years ago, when TJEF had just an outstanding group of applicants, and we had limited resources. We had, as I mentioned earlier, we fund 2 fully and 2 halves. We didn't have a partner for one of the halves that was readily available or that we knew about. And Tammy, being the fabulous partner from EJW, got busy with the other national sponsors that she knew she had, and what looked like was going to, it was going to be our ability to fund 3 of the probably 8 that we had as finalists that we really wanted. She was able to leverage resources from outside of Texas, maybe some from inside of Texas, some anonymous, some not anonymous, and we ended up getting 6 funded in that year. It was just outstanding. TJEF had to step aside on some that we really wanted so that other sponsors could take them, and we were happy to do that. We work with kind of a big picture view of what do we need to do to get the most funded, not who's the best candidate and we have to have them. So if we take a B+ candidate instead of an A candidate, so that a firm from outside of Texas can send their money to Texas and fund that A candidate, we're happy to do it. So when you think about hosting a fellow, don't think that you are limited to 4 in the state just because TGIF is the only game in town. We're not. There are other firms in Texas. There are firms outside of Texas who want to pay for people to go down to that terrible state where they don't know anything about justice and help those people out. I'm being facetious, but I do think there are a lot of people in New York City and DC and places like that who think they need to help low-income people in Texas obtain justice. And so we're an attractive state, and it does make TRLA an attractive organization for that kind of work. But all of you have attractive organizations too, outstanding organizations. And so marketing that is something that EJW, TGIF, your candidate can help you do. Let's see. This is something that I encourage you to consider if you're thinking, we would really like to have a 2016-2018 fellow. We really would like to have one. Nobody comes to mind right now. Nothing comes to mind. Then what I encourage you to do is sit down with your most, with a team from your staff that would kind of be your greatest advisors and come up with 1, 2, tops 3 issue areas where you might think that identify a need that you've seen in your service area and come up with a very short, like this, proposal. And I'm sorry, I was not allowed to put the call for fellowship applicants that I received had information about the organization, and I needed to redact that, and I was working with a PDF file and I didn't know how to redact it, so I ended up being able to change the name of the organization to Your Legal Aid and do some other things, like One for All Justice Avenue. I was really proud of that. But anyway, so it's difficult to read this, but the crux of it is that you're in the first part of the organization, in the first part of the call for fellowship applicants, you're telling potential applicants what your issue areas are and what you would like to accomplish with a fellowship. So one is ideal, 2 or 3 issue areas that you think need to be addressed in your service area. And then you're talking about, in this particular case, the organization was seeking to sponsor 2 candidates for either a SCADN or an EJW fellow or other privately funded fellowships that this particular organization knew could be available to them. And they're seeking a letter of intent or a cover letter, resume, writing sample, list of 3 references, and 1-page preliminary project proposal related to the work that this legal aid organization has identified as being important to their organization. They send that out, and Tammy or Sarah may know more about exactly how. What I would think, this is a DC organization that does this, and it's a very well-known DC organization. But, I would see it as in the case of the time constraints that we have now for the application process, getting it to local law schools, getting it on your website, getting it to the state bar, those kinds of things where you get out, put it on the TGIF website. Put it on Craigslist. But those kinds of things where you put a call out to do a preliminary review, and I think cutting it to just say a letter of intent or something like that. This is the work we do. We would like to have a fellow in our organization for 2016, 2018 to do this work. Send us a letter of intent that tells us what your preliminary thought is about what a project would look like, and then we will review those and we will be in touch if we want to talk about a fellowship. And that's the kind of thing that you could put out and say, within 14 to 21 business days, we'd like to see see that a response, and that might be a way to do it. It's one strategy. I'm going to take you now to the web page of EJW that sets forth everything you need to know and what you don't need to know. Either Sarah, Tammy, or myself can answer. And I routinely, I would say some of the most successful and seasoned fellowship recipients regularly call me, even though they've done it a million times, to bounce this idea off or that idea off, or to say, you know, I thought that, I mean, I've got 2 students that want to be a fellow, and I think they're both great, and how, you know, but my organization really feels like it needs this one. But if I didn't have that one, then I'd want this one. So they call to talk through how that process works and what the strategy would be. And, I've even told them before, if it comes down to it and they're equally matched and we can't make the decision, we'll call you and we'll say, you know, which fellow do you think would be better for your organization and serve your client community best? So we're here to help. This is a competitive process, and there are certain boundaries around which we could, that we can't cross, but we are here to provide every bit of information we can so that you have the best shot at having a successful application. If you want to know about fellowships that have been funded in the recent or long past, you can go to this portion, and it tells you who the fellow is, the host organization, the issue area, and then who sponsored them. I think this is, particularly for those of you who work closely with big law firms, this is a good place to go look and find out if there is a law firm that you're close to that has funded a fellow in another state, or so that you can maybe call that contact you have at that law firm and say, we've got an opportunity to have a fellow. One of our major funders funds fellows, and they tell us if we bring a partner with us to the table, then we stand a better chance of getting our fellowship funded than we do if they've got to fund the entire thing. And that is absolutely the truth. If you come to us and say we've got a fellowship opportunity and we have it half funded already, this is going to make you much more attractive to TGEF, because obviously we leverage more dollars for fellowships in Texas. So this is a very helpful page, and it provides a great deal of information. And then this is, and it says 15, it's really 2016 outreach issue areas and geography and sponsors, or host, where the host organizations come from, I should say. So the geographic areas, you can see Texas is listed, and that's because of TGEF and because of some other law firms and entities that have said that Texas is a priority for them. So it's not just TGEF. Greenberg funds in Texas every year. It has for some time. So then you see the issue areas: medical legal partnership, school-based immigration projects in California and Texas. Okay, TGEF has not told EJW that we favor school-based immigration projects. So that means that there's a law firm or some funding entity, a sponsor out there, who has said that they are interested in school-based immigration projects. So, that means if you have a strong school-based immigration project with a strong candidate at the helm of it, then it's going to be, it's not only going to have one, but it's going to have 2 potential funders in Texas, because that's not us. So, in fact, we haven't given them any issue areas that we are particularly interested in for the coming year. So you can see the rest of these issue areas that have been identified by potential sponsors. And then these are the host organizations. So if you click on this, you're going to get a list of our grantees, all of you who, it actually takes you to our website. So that you know who those who is eligible for a TGEF grantee. I mean, for a TGEF EJW fellowship. I think this is advice that Sarah goes over carefully with in webinars that she does for interested applicants. But there are good things for you to think about when you're working with an applicant on their proposal. And it's critical that they demonstrate a pressing need in a specific community. So you're going to know as much about that as they do, quite likely, since it is going to be something that is important to your organization and your community. I mean, they may have more facts and figures, but you're going to be able to read their application, and I encourage you to do that with an eye toward, are they really making the case for this? Their dream job, I mean, they're getting to write it, just write their dream job. So when you read their application, you want to see, do they sound passionate about it? Are they looking forward to doing this work? Can you feel that in the written application? That they appreciate who you are as a host organization, and that it's clear they're not walking in blind and unknowing about who you are and what you're about. One of the things that always stands out to me when I read these is whether they are, whether there is something in their personal statement that would tell me that they truly have a passion about this work. It may not be a direct connection, like, I had a candidate a few years ago who's working in a legal aid organization now who wanted to do mental health work in the criminal justice system, do the civil work that supported someone who's been who is in the criminal justice system because of a mental health issue that resulted in criminality. This person wanted to do this because their brother had been mentally ill, had been paranoid schizophrenic, and this young man had grown up with that brother and had at different times been embarrassed by, mad at, had great difficulty, having been the younger brother of this young man, of this person who had mental illness. And through the evolution of becoming a grown-up and going to undergraduate school and going to law school, his heart changed, his mind changed, his being changed about this, and he wanted to spend his career working to help people like that. Not everybody's going to have that kind of connection. That's not what I'm talking about. Olivia doesn't have a direct connection to human trafficking, but she's a woman. She's a person who has a conviction about human rights, and when she speaks about her conviction about helping these vulnerable populations, be it children or women, or you can tell it's visceral. So that's what I'm talking about, is you want a candidate who can bring that to the table, if at all possible. And again, you want that in your organization. I mean, you want a bit of a fire in the belly for access to justice for everyone. So, and then one thing that I wanted to point out is the know your community, obtain stakeholder buy-in, be aware of what you're taking on. I've seen in a couple of different instances where, because it's not always perfect, where a candidate is funded and it seems like they know what they're about to tackle, but they aren't able to make great inroads. And that typically happens in the area of pro bono and pro bono development, and wanting to develop pro bono in a place, usually rural, where it's never been developed before, or it hasn't been effectively developed. And we're not adverse to funding things like that, but we need to know that the fellow appreciates what they're up against. So, making sure that if they want to start a pro bono program to serve victims of domestic violence in the most, one of the most rural areas in Texas, then, the lack of lawyers, the fact that lawyers don't, they may run up against old attitudes about how pro bono infringes upon their work. Lawyers typically don't want to take complicated family law issues, particularly where, domestic violence is involved. So really appreciating all the aspects of what their project will mean and the barriers that they're going to face, because that's a question I guarantee you that we'll get every time is, have you thought about the barrier to outreach in this situation? Have you thought about the barrier to recruitment in this situation? So we're not just looking at the legal issue, we're looking at the total package and whether it's viable and sustainable. And the rest of this is, I think, pretty explanatory. Sustainability is very important. And so to the extent the host can help them address that, we've had hosts that have said they're going to be committed to finding funding to carry on the work after the fact. That's not necessary, but it sure is a great thing if you have that commitment on the front end, and we'll be working on that. This doesn't apply a lot to TGEF in terms of how we might be involved by sponsoring, but it does to the law firms. They like to have a role. They very often like to have a role in the work that their fellow is going to be doing, and they like to be kept. We like to be kept apprised too. We like to know so that we can put that out on our Facebook or our website and that sort of thing. But EJW does a beautiful job of gathering that and working directly with fellows. So that's not a host job. You don't have to worry about making sure that your fellows are filing the reports that they need to file, or they're giving the credit where credit is due and that sort of thing in order to keep sponsors happy. EJW does that beautifully in concert with the fellows. This is the piece that the host organization fills out. It's not terribly lengthy. It's just important that it be very clear that the organization is committed to the project, committed to the fellow, and available to provide the substantive training, support, and supervision throughout the fellowship term. I think I've already explained this. High-scoring projects advance to the next stage. The sponsors consider the applications, and we try to notify people early if they're not going to be interviewed at all. But the fact that a candidate is not in an early interview, an early set of interviews, if they've not been notified that they're not going to be interviewed at all and their application has come to an end, then that doesn't mean they won't be interviewed down the road. So if you hear, well, so-and-so's being interviewed and your person's heard nothing, that just means they'll probably be interviewed later, very likely. So that is the PowerPoint presentation, and the fellowships at equaljusticeworks.org is a place that you can ask questions, but I know Sarah and Tammy are very available, particularly Sarah, since you're a host organization, is available to answer any questions that you have, and I will type her email address into the chat box here so that everybody has that. And you can definitely set up a time to talk with her more. She may be calling you. We may be following up proactively and calling folks who are on the call and calling other organizations to see if we have some interest in having a fellowship this year. And then my email, anytime, absolutely anytime. I'm happy to talk to you about any aspect of this. And if I don't know it, then I'll send you to who does know it at EJW. I have a question. Do all applicants have to include a pro bono component in their proposal? No. It's a positive thing, but no, it's not necessary. And many get funded that do not have that. Let me see. I think I have another question. Can the fellowships be extended? No.
I'll take this one.
Yeah,
Sarah.
thank you.
Okay, so yes, a fellowship cannot be extended, and if you mean as far as like starting late, that would be a no. All fellows start in September and then end their fellowship that September 2 years later. If that's what you mean.
Actually, I think what they were, Tammy, I think what they were asking is, say the fellowship ends in August, but the fellow is moving away to another state in December, and you'd like to extend the fellow for the last 4 months in the year so that they can stay in the state and work. I mean, you can extend it and pay for it. It won't technically at that point be an EJW fellowship or a TJF fellowship, but you can definitely keep that person on for those 4 months. It just won't be within our system. Is that right, Tammy?
Well, it's a Sarah, but yes, that's correct.
Sorry.
Yeah, we only pay out the supporting payments, the $41,000 for those 2 years. But I mean, it is our hope that the host organization would keep that fellow on, you know, forever for a long time. But they just wouldn't be considered an Equal Justice Works fellow.
That's right.
And can I say something about the pro bono question? Can everybody hear me?
Kind of. A little murky.
Okay. Let me give it a try. While TAJF does not require a pro bono component in their fellowships, a lot of our other sponsors, our corporate and law firm sponsors do. So we do encourage that you include that in the application so that we can fill your application to other entities, sponsoring entities, and that it would be a complete application.
So it expands the possibility in terms of sponsors, I think is what Tammy is saying. I know it's a little bit hard to hear her. TJF doesn't require it. Of course, TJF loves pro bono. So, you know, does it make your application more desirable even to TJF? Yes, probably so. But Tammy's point is that she has firms that are looking to sponsor, and they do require it. They want to see it because they're, you know, they're a large law firm and they have a pro bono system and they have a pro bono coordinator, and they might want to engage in opportunities through that project.
Yes, thank you, Lisa.
Sure. Are there any other questions? Because I've gone over 2 minutes and I did not intend to do that. I apologize. We are here to help you in any way. I will be, I think this one's better than the last, so I'm probably going to be putting this one up on the website in case there's somebody else in your organization who wants to listen to the webinar. Otherwise, feel free to contact me, Tammy, or Sarah with, Sarah, tell me your, it's ssnik@equaljusticeworks.org.
Works.org.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm going to send that to y'all.
And my phone number,
Okay.
I was going to say, you could also call me. My
Okay.
phone number is 202-466-3686, and my extension is 107.
107.
And if anyone wants to actually call, I'm here in the office. I work part-time. My days are Tuesday, Thursday, and Friday.
In the office Tuesday, Thursday, and Friday. I am sending this to all of you so that you can copy it down or copy and paste it into your contacts or something. Okay, thanks so much. Have a great weekend.
You too.
Bye.